Yo, 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 what is up, YouTube? BK Brad Kellner. Today is Friday, January 21st, 2022. A very happy Friday to each and every one of you out there. And on today's video, we're doing something a little bit different. Now, it's not going to be different for long, but this is the first video I've ever done talking about Houston sports. So if you're subscribed to me already, thank you. I appreciate that. But you're probably subscribed for my Longhorn content. The Longhorn content's not going anywhere. I'm still going to be making videos talking all things UT. So don't worry about that. But I am a radio host now in Houston, working for ESPN 97.5, and I felt like I should start talking about Houston sports as well, some of the pressing issues facing the Texans, Astros, and Rockets down here. So I forgot to put the banner up before I started this video, but now it's up right there at the bottom of your screen. So once again, the Longhorn stuff will continue. Not talking any UT in today's video, but now I wanted to do some Houston stuff as well. And on my channel, I'll separate it. I'll make a couple of playlists, one for Longhorns, one for Houston sports, so things will be organized and it'll be easy for y'all to find what you are looking for on my channel. So appreciate the love. Hey, if you're a UT and Houston sports fan, there you go. This channel was just made even better for you. If not, that's all right. I'll still be making UT content. And if you are here for Houston sports, I appreciate y'all stopping by. I promise I won't have this disclaimer at the start of every single video. I'll get into the juicy stuff way earlier than 90 to 100 seconds in. So as you could tell by the title of today's video, we're talking mock drafts. Obviously, a lot going on with the Houston Texans. I'll talk about coaching search in future videos. I'll talk about the Deshaun Watson trade potential in future videos too. But in today's video, we're talking about Dane Brugler's recent 2-round mock draft. Dane Brugler, one of my favorites, does phenomenal work with The Athletic. And earlier this week, he released a 2-round mock for this 2022 NFL draft. Of course, the Texans have the number 3 overall pick in the first round of the draft. The Texans also have their own second-round pick, number 37 overall. So for the first time in years, the Texans have their first and second-round picks. And Nick Caserio and company, they've got some ammunition to work with. And once again, talking about a Deshaun Watson trade, I feel like there's a very good chance the Texans have a few more picks in the first 2 rounds of this year's NFL draft. But since there is no Deshaun Watson trade yet, we'll just stick with what we know, and that's the Texans picking at 3 and 37 overall in the first 2 rounds. So Dane Brugler had a little bit of a twist at the top of his mock draft. He has the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Ikem Ekwonu, the tackle from NC State, with the first overall pick. So most of the mock drafts you've probably looked at over the last few months have the Jags taking an edge rusher, number 1 overall, right? I mean, most mock drafts for the majority of the college football season had edges going 1-2. Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeaux, or Kayvon Thibodeaux, Aiden Hutchinson. In some form or fashion, most mock drafts you looked at during the season had those 2 guys going, 1 to Jacksonville and 2 to Detroit. Well, recent mock drafts, and this is starting to become more and more of a trend, have the Jaguars taking an offensive lineman with the first overall pick. And look, that makes sense. They spent their first overall pick on Trevor Lawrence last year. He's the most important person in that franchise. You bring in a stud left tackle to protect your most valuable asset. Okay, the Jags wouldn't be the first team to do that. So we don't know yet if that's what Jacksonville is going to do. But once again, that feels like it's becoming a trend. More and more mock drafters out there are starting to project Jacksonville to take a left tackle number 1 overall. Usually Evan Neal is the name you see. Evan Neal, the left tackle out of Alabama, but Icky, as they call him, Ikem Ekwonu, is a fast riser in these mock drafts. And you see some mock drafts, including Dane Brugler, have Ikem Ekwonu going number 1 overall. That dude is a mauler, man. He is violent. Like, that's the one word I would use to describe Ikem Ekwonu. He is violent. So if the Jags take an offensive lineman number 1 overall, then that means if the Texans stay at number 3, and look, they could trade down, and Nick Caserio, in an interview he did earlier this week, said the Texans would absolutely be opening to trading down from number 3 on draft night. But if the Texans stay at number 3, they would have the opportunity to take one of those 2 stud edge rushers, which a lot of people didn't think that opportunity was going to be there once the Texans fell to the 3rd overall pick. That feels kind of weird to say because he had to win to get there, but that's how it works. So Dane Brugler's mock draft has Aiden Hutchinson going number 2 overall to the Detroit Lions. Hutchinson, of course, played his college ball at Michigan, from the state of Michigan. Feels like the likely pick there if Hutchinson is on the board. I think most teams, I don't think all teams, but I think most teams probably have Hutchinson ahead of Thibodeaux on their big boards. And yeah, that feels like the assumption is that whether it's number 1 or number 2, Hutchinson is going to be the first of the 2 edge rushers off the board. The only question is, does Jacksonville take him at 1, or do they take an offensive lineman and then Detroit takes Hutch with the second pick? So Dane Brugler has Ekwonu going 1, Hutch going 2, and he's got the Houston Texans selecting Kayvon Thibodeaux, the edge rusher out of Oregon, with the 3rd overall pick. And guys, if this happens, I would be thrilled. Now, look, I don't think the Texans should disconnect their phones if Kayvon Thibodeaux falls to them at number 3. I mean, if a team gives you a call and makes a ridiculous offer looking to come up to get Kayvon Thibodeaux or to get a quarterback, right? If a team is worried about somebody right below Houston snagging a quarterback and they want their choice of their favorite quarterback in this year's draft, then, hey, you take the call. And if you can get a bunch of stuff in return, if you can get more draft picks, a future first, you absolutely take the call and you consider moving down. But, man, if you end up with Kayvon Thibodeaux in the NFL draft with the 3rd overall pick, you could do a lot worse. I'm a big fan of Kayvon Thibodeaux's game. Is he perfect? No. Is he as good of a prospect as Myles Garrett was coming out of college or Joey Bosa was coming out of college? No, but this dude's got sky-high potential for me. He was one of the highest touted recruits coming out of high school a couple of years ago, 5-star. Some sites had him as the number 1 player in the country, and he was damn good at Oregon too. The stats aren't the greatest, but there are some numbers there that tell you that Kayvon Thibodeaux's got the chance to be a really, really special player in this league. I'm looking at my notes. If you see me keep turning my head, I've got my notes at my phone here, what I want to talk about in regards to Thibodeaux. Great frame. He's long, he's lean, but he's strong too. And I got the chance to see Kayvon Thibodeaux in person this past season. I went to the Civil War, or the game formerly known as the Civil War. I don't know if I'm allowed to call it that. Sorry if that bothers anybody. But Oregon State, the rivalry game. I got to go see it this year in Eugene. And, man, Kayvon Thibodeaux, that dude is just built different. He looks like an NFL dude. He's got an NFL edge rusher body, and he's had that for a couple of years, but he's ready to go right now. Maybe he puts on a few more pounds when he gets to the next level. He's got the frame that would allow him to do that. But this guy looks like a Sunday player. And in the game that I saw, in the first half, Thibodeaux wasn't making that much of an impact. It's not like he was getting bullied or pushed around or anything like that, but I wanted more in the first half of that game against Oregon State. But in the second half, as the game wore on, he was torturing Oregon State's offensive lineman, right? The right tackle just was having trouble, and Oregon State had to chip, they had to double, they had to do a lot to slow down Thibodeaux, but it wasn't even enough. He was everywhere in the second half of that game. So he's the type of player who just wears you down over the course of 4 quarters. And once again, he was a tremendous impact player for Oregon in the second half of that game. He was a big impact player for Oregon for the majority of his college career. And he battled an ankle injury this past season, right? He missed the Ohio State game early, but still played most of the games this year. And even with an ankle injury, he had some really, really good moments. The speed is absolutely there. Great burst, an explosive first step, great bend, super flexible. He's got a lot of traits that you look for in an elite edge rusher. And I think he's better against the pass right now. I think he's better as a pass rusher, but he's a very good run stopper too. And that's not a weakness of his at all, in my opinion. I talked about the stats not necessarily being the greatest. He only had 7 sacks this year. And if you compare that to some of the other great edge rushers in college football, it doesn't look great, right? Will Anderson, who led the country for Alabama, he had 17. Aiden Hutchinson had 14, right? The guy who's expected to go 1 pick before Thibodeaux in the draft. David Ojabo from Michigan, another guy who's expected to be a first rounder this year. He had 11. Jermaine Johnson at Florida State, who's a potential first-round pick, he had 12. So if you just look at the sack numbers, you might be like, is this guy really that good? He only had 7 over the course of most of a season in 2021. Look, sacks don't tell the whole story. And if you're only looking at sacks as a measure of how good edge rushers are in the year of our Lord 2022, you're doing it wrong. My favorite Kayvon Thibodeaux stat And the stat that tells me that he's a stud and has the chance to be a stud at the next level is pressure percentage in the regular season this year. Unfortunately, I couldn't find this stat after bowl season came to an end. I guess Thibodeaux didn't even play in his bowl game, so it doesn't matter too much there, but just in terms of other people, how they stacked up. But in terms of the regular season, I digress. Pressure percentage, Kayvon Thibodeaux, number one in the country in terms of edge rushers in pressure percentage. You don't have to get sacks to be a disruptor. You don't have to get sacks to be an awesome football player. Kayvon Thibodeaux wreaked havoc often this year and during the entirety of his Oregon career. Sacks are great, but pressure forces turnovers, pressure forces bad throws, pressure forces problems for the offense. That, to me, is more important than just sacks. So, yeah, the sack numbers might not be where you want them to be. They might not pop off the screen or jump off the page, but the pressure percentage, Thibodeaux's number one in the country. Better than Will Anderson, better than Aiden Hutchinson, better than Ojabo, better than any of the edge rushers who might hear their name called on the first night of the NFL draft. So I really like Kayvon Thibodeaux. If he falls to number 3, I'd have a tough time passing him up. Once again, if the Texans get an amazing trade with a future first-round pick in there, okay, I'll listen. I will absolutely listen because this team needs way more than just Kayvon Thibodeaux, right? This roster is bereft of talent. There are a lot of holes for Nick Caserio and company to fill. But, yeah, if you get Kayvon Thibodeaux, who a lot of people thought was going to be the number 1 pick for the majority of last college football season, if you get that guy at number 3, you could be doing a lot worse. So that was the first-round pick that Dane Brugler had the Texans making in his mock draft 2.0 over at The Athletic. The second-round pick I thought was a little bit more interesting, right? Obviously, Thibodeaux, 3rd overall pick, he's a hell of a player. But the second-round pick, I want to get y'all's thoughts on this. And, of course, comment below with your thoughts on Thibodeaux, your thoughts on this video, what you want to hear from me. You guys are the reason I do these videos. You guys are the reason this channel exists. So always enjoy hearing from y'all. But the second-round pick that Dane Brugler has the Texans making at number 37 overall is Kenneth Walker, the stud running back out of Michigan State. And Brugler has the Texans taking the first running back in the draft. So he has no running backs going in the first round. He has the Texans taking Kenneth Walker early in the second round, the first running back off the board. So basically insinuating that, hey, the Texans might have their pick of the litter when it comes to the running back spot if they want one in the second round. Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M is another guy who could be the first running back off the board. Breece Hall from Iowa State, another guy who fits that category as well. But for the sake of this video, we'll talk about Dane Brugler having Kenneth Walker going to the Texans. This kid is a great story. Started his college career at Wake Forest, only had 3 FBS offers out of high school, so not a super highly touted recruit by any stretch of the imagination. Started at Wake Forest, transferred to Michigan State, and just exploded last season. Over 1,600 yards, more than 6 yards per carry, 18 touchdowns for the Spartans. Michigan State surprised everybody this year. I think their Vegas over-under for their win total in 2021 was like 4.5, and they won double-digit games under Mel Tucker. Kenneth Walker, the Doak Walker Award winner in 2021 as the best running back in college football, and he finished 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting this year. A running back. Look, there has been a pretty good history of running backs recently drafted in the second round. I never advise teams to take a running back in the first round. Running backs aren't valuable enough, and they're too replaceable in today's day and age. I don't advise teams to take a running back in the first round, and I don't advise teams to give their running backs behemoth long-term contracts. Look at Zeke Elliott, look at Christian McCaffrey, look at most of the running backs who have gotten big-time, long-term, high-money deals. Just hasn't quite panned out. Running backs are replaceable, man. You can get running backs in the mid-rounds of the drafts. You could pick up running backs in free agency. And as long as you have a good offensive line and a good scheme, those guys can find ways to be effective. So I sure as hell don't want the Texans taking a running back number 3 overall. But let me run down some of the recent second-round running backs who have gone in the draft and who have had some success. So there was only one taken in the second round last year. That was Javonte Williams, who went to Denver. Very impressive rookie season. Some of the other recent second-round running backs to go, Jonathan Taylor, who is the second best running back in football behind Derrick Henry, but because Henry was hurt, Taylor was the best running back in football this year. Cam Akers for the Rams, stud. J.K. Dobbins, missed the entirety of the season with an injury. Really good player. A.J. Dillon with the Packers, really good player. DeAndre Swift with the Lions, okay, hasn't been great. It's the Lions. He showed some things. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. But those are the second-round running backs that have been drafted in the last 2 years. Pretty damn good success rate. Pretty good hit rate with those guys. And you look at some of the other second-round running backs in the league. Nick Chubb, stud. Dalvin Cook, stud. Joe Mixon, stud. The aforementioned Derrick Henry, stud. Now, not every second-round running back who's been drafted over the last few years has been great. Darius Geis, second-round pick, didn't do anything in the league. Had some off-the-field stuff, too, of course. Kerryon Johnson, battle injuries, didn't really do a whole lot in the league. Bishop Sankey, second-round pick. Like, not every single running back drafted in the second round has been a stud, but the hit rate's pretty damn good. And, yeah, like, the Texans clearly need running back help. They were the worst running team in the NFL last year. And they had David Johnson and Rex Burkhead and Phillip Lindsay and Mark Ingram and just nobody that excited you at all. Kenneth Walker would excite me. As of now, I think Rex Burkhead is the only guy coming back in that Texans running back room. I think he's the only guy under contract for next season, and he just got an extension late in the year. Ingram's obviously gone. Phillip Lindsay's obviously gone. Those guys were let go or traded in the middle of the season. David Johnson's contract is done. So, yeah, like the Texans need running back help is the point I'm trying to make. The run game was horrendously bad this season, and yeah, you just don't have anybody that excites you in that running back room. Like, I'm okay with Rex Burkhead coming back. I'm not okay with Rex Burkhead being an every down back or this team's number one running back in 2022. That'd be a disaster. Kenneth Walker, a little bit about him. Good burst, great balance. He's got home run ability. He's not afraid of contact, which I love. I don't want my running back shying away from contract. He is willing to run over people if he needs to. He can break arm tackles. Got very good vision as well. The one sort of weakness, and I don't even know if it's a weakness. Like, I think Kenneth Walker has good hands, but he just wasn't asked to do a lot of receiving last year at Michigan State. He only had 13 catches last season. Also not great in pass protection. So, like, maybe that's why you keep Rex Burkhead as your third down back, a guy who can run routes at times like a wide receiver and a guy who's pretty good in pass pro too. Kenneth Walker, not quite there. I think the hands are fine. I don't think they're bad. But yeah, his route tree is just not that developed. It's not that expansive, and he's not great in pass protection. Those are the biggest problems with Kenneth Walker. But in terms of running the football, he's got most, if not all, of the traits that you would want in a running back. So I'd be okay with this. I would absolutely be okay, especially if the Texans pick up another draft pick or two in the Deshaun Watson trade or in a Deshaun Watson trade. Then I think you can absolutely take the chance on a running back. And once again, second-round running backs have been pretty damn successful in this league in recent years. So found that a little bit interesting. Most of the mocks that we've talked about on the radio show have been just first-round mocks, right? Trying to figure out what the Texans are going to do with a top 3 pick. But obviously they've got way more picks to make than just that. So Kenneth Walker in the second round, what do y'all think? Would you be in favor of him? Would you be in favor of a running back in general? Would you rather it be Isaiah Spiller, obviously Texas ties, Texas A&M, right up the road, or maybe a Breece Hall from Iowa State, really good too? Let me know in the comments below what you would like to see the Texans do with their first 2 picks of the 2022 NFL Draft. All right, I think that's going to do it for today's video. Please like this video if you haven't yet. Thank you for making it this far. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet. And once again, we're going to start talking more Houston sports on this channel, but we'll keep the Longhorn content going as well. Hopefully I'm not lagging a bunch. I'm seeing that my Wi-Fi isn't great, but that's all right. Feels like a good time to wrap up the video then. All right, guys, appreciate the love. And then we'll be back to talk more Houston Texans on this channel. So thanks again, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Quick plug for the Wheelhouse, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 every weekday from 3 to 7 p.m. You can listen online, ESPN975.com. All right, guys, thanks. Have a good one.